and this is part of my passion around it. So many women postpartum coming in and being like, this is not what I wanted. My birth went way off the rails. Like I was there. I was like a cog in the wheel. I was another number. None of it mattered. Once I entered into XYZ system, or I invited XYZ into my house, right? So those kind of ideas about where those little windows into where we outsource our power. And so for my husband and I've had that experience. I witnessed women crying on my tables postpartum, and I was like, okay, I want to create something else. What do we want to create? We want to create what we would call like an intact birth experience.
Welcome to the To Flourish podcast, where we sit down and have conversations around all things fertility, pregnancy, birth, and postpartum. From trying to conceive to that little babe nestled in your arms, my hope is that you walk away from today's episode feeling empowered, confident, and encouraged to flourish in this season.
Okay, I'm so excited to welcome you to today's episode. We are sitting down with Molly and joining us from Hawaii, right? Maui, is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, Maui. Also, I forgot to ask, what time is it there? Is
7.
it 7 a.m.? Okay.
Yeah.
That's what
I'm
I
like,
thought.
this is the time that's going to fit in the schedule. So my husband took our son to the beach. So it's perfect.
Oh, that's so sweet. Little morning beach time. Well, I'm so excited for our conversation today. Molly is a practicing chiropractor, correct? And it seems like you specialize with mothers and babies and family. I would love to hear, if we just dive right in here, if you want to give a little introduction about yourself and hear about your practice and just your journey into the chiropractic arena.
Sweet. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Molly. I am a practicing chiropractor on the island of Maui. My first baby is my chiropractic practice. That's what I always say. It's called Living Adjusted. And it was born out of, a desire to heal and a desire to, I guess the saying is like, you teach what you need to learn kind of thing. And so it was a desire to heal. It was an overflow of service and really just like my heart's work for a really long time. And then I moved to Maui, opened Living Adjusted. I met my husband, and shortly after we got married, we became pregnant. And so my life's work, I guess you could say, is split or has shifted a bit that way. And so stepping into motherhood last August, so almost coming up on a year, it felt like a transformational period for me to really just know the depths of the work that we're doing at Living Adjusted. And I have another educational company with a couple other incredible women called Midline Revolution. And having firsthand experience, I feel like it revolutionized a lot of the way that I approach just caring for women and being with women and being with infants and being with birth. I spent a lot of time at birth, and when I was in chiropractic school in Dallas, one of my main mentors was Autumn Gore. If anybody's in Dallas, look her up at Cafe of Life. Incredible woman. She kind of took me under her wing for a handful of years there. And she had this really beautiful way of creating metaphors, birth metaphors out of anything in life. So she would talk about, birthing a new relationship, birthing a new career, birthing a new season of your life. And she would break down the stages of birth and labor into whatever the rite of passage you were kind of going through in the moment. And I was healing a lot of things that had happened with my family previously in childhood, and then healing some relational pieces and really just kind of coming to know like who I was. Because if you know any graduate program or any like doctorate program, it's like you're literally like there's like a fire hose to your mouth with information. You're just like all day, all the time. And so in that process, you're also like, who am I? What do I like to do? Do I have a hobby? Like who is Molly? I'm being bombarded with all this information. What do I want to do? What do I envision? What do I see with the future? And how am I going to utilize this degree or this information that I'm receiving? And so she was just a really potent piece in my story. And she really she took me under her wing for those years, and she introduced me to some of the birth workers in Dallas. And one of them was a doula association. So I became a doula, apprenticed through them, became a doula, practicing doula there. And then I was assisting midwives. So I was doing a lot of midwifery assisting all at the end of my chiropractic school. And then when I came to Maui, that was like one of the first things I wanted to do was get in with the midwifery community, because I was interested in having that a part of my practice. And I always say, like, and it's so funny to think about the parallels, because I love the idea that, like, the way that you birth is the way that you do anything. The way that you birth in childbirth is the way that you birth anything. And so if I parallel, like, the birth of Living Adjusted, that first business, and then my first son, I had a lot of openness with who was going to be involved, and who was going to be present, who was going to hold space for us to walk through that portal, so go through the portal. And with the birth of Living Adjusted, it was during 2020. So I think we started at the very end of January 24th. And then March is when everything was locked down, quote unquote. And yeah, we had 5 different mothers who had come in during that time. All the other chiropractors on island were, shut down. And I just really had this sense that I was like, I'm not meant to, like, close my doors. This is the moment I was made for, like that Esther vibe. Like, this is my time. This is my service. This is me showing my integrity and my congruency with my belief systems about the body and about healing. And so I kept my doors open, and there was 5 mothers that came in through the referrals from midwives and the connection that I made, and they built Living Adjusted, like, wholeheartedly. One of the mothers, I had attended her birth, so she had come in for like 2 months of chiropractic care in that time, and then that summer I had attended her birth, and then those moms, like, built my practice. So they always say, like, family practices, especially in pregnancy, they'll start with pregnancy, and then you end up seeing their husband, their son, and then they have another one, and then they have another one. So it's like the chiropractic math is like one pregnant mom equals 5 or something like that.
Oh my gosh.
That's a joke. But it was totally like that. And then in the birth of my son, it was the exact same way. We weren't planning to have the people that had showed up and the people we called in, we weren't planning to have them there, like intellectually planning. But we had been building our life in a way that was supportive of that, in which we had called in. And so that, like, village mentality and, like, being held by wise women, peers, and women that have done it before, and then ended up being surrounded by women birthing, which is really rad.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is so beautiful.
Yeah.
So beautiful.
Yeah.
I just want to share, that's so true about, I feel like, the mom and then getting the 5 other people that happened with us was I started seeing a chiropractor when I was pregnant. And then shortly after, my husband was interested and he wanted to go in and get checked out. And then now we go in for our son.
Yep. It's
and
real,
it's like this
though.
beautiful thing for our family.
And the way that you're able to hold space for any type of, like, supportive practitioner, someone really coming in with the type of, like, compassion and space holding and true integrous support, not necessarily like me putting something on someone else or acting like the savior or acting like the one that has the answers, the expert, but really just being like, I do have something to offer. And I know that you are the healers within you, right? Like, your body knows exactly what to do. And yes, there are these supportive tools that we can utilize, but ultimately, like, I trust your intuition. I trust your body. I trust the way that your baby is moving in the belly, or the way that your baby's positioned, etc. The way that your body's expressing, like, we hold space for that trust. And then the mother's transformation, the mother is the center. So she gets to, like, bring in her people around her and be like, I want my whole family to experience this unlocking, this trust in the body, this space holding. So that's really cool.
Yeah. Oh, that's so awesome. Well, I'm super excited. Today, we're going to be diving into the conversation around just powerful responsibility in our responsibility for our choices and honoring our intuition as mothers in the pregnancy and birthing process, even postpartum too. And just hearing you share, some of your story, it's just so evident that you're just grounded in honoring those processes in yourself and the people around you. Um, I know because I've followed you on Instagram for a while. I'll like watch your stories or see your posts. And there's a part of me that's like, I wish I could join in like in person. I'm so grateful for this virtual aspect as well, getting to connect
That's so special.
and start incorporating like the things that you introduce in our own lives, in our own communities. And so I'm just grateful to get to sit and have this conversation today and just invite our listeners into just owning our responsibility. And so, in your experience and your perspective, how would you say a victim mentality in pregnancy, birth, and motherhood shows up? Seeing as you shared about your practice, you've gotten to work with a lot of mothers and even beyond just your practice, your experience in the birth world. I would love to hear a little bit about your perspective on that.
Yeah, I actually was asking this question to my husband last night because I love like his reflection and he's such a good mirror for me. And the idea that we were coming to was just this idea of fear in general, and the separation that creates with the trust in our body and then the trust in the greater like creation creator. And it's in everything. This little idea that like I need something else to complete me, to bring wholeness, to save me, to you can insert, whatever whatever verb. And it's in the medical industrial complex. It's in religion. It's in school, education. It's in mothering. It's in like all the arenas, and especially the arenas of radical transformation and radical responsibility. And so I think throughout history, humans have like dealt with this concept, and a lot of where we are now is replacing the humanness, right? The things that make our human meat suit what it is. We're replacing a lot of that with convenience and technology. And so it shows up in many ways in motherhood, and it shows up in many ways in pregnancy and birth. And I think that there are these ideas, these social constructs, these ideas that we will have to face if we're wanting to take radical responsibility throughout the pregnancy process, throughout those 9 months of gestation. Those are some of the ideas that I think begin to either come up and we shut them down, or we are able to like work through those ideas and continue that process into postpartum. And so some ideas would be like, do I need to see my son or daughter on an ultrasound? Like, do I need to see them on a testing, an image? And do I need to see an image of them to know that they're okay? Like that would be like a really basic first example. Or even just, do I need to pee on a stick to know that I'm pregnant, right? Those kind of ideas. So those, for me, it was just, I guess I can talk mostly about my experience instead of like projecting on the collective, and knowing that I have had experiences, many women sitting in my office, man. And this is part of my passion around it. So many women postpartum coming in and being like, this is not what I wanted. My birth went way off the rails. Like I was there. I was like a cog in the wheel. I was another number. None of it mattered. Once I entered into XYZ system, or I invited XYZ into my house, right? So those kind of ideas about where those little windows into where we outsource our power. And so for my husband and I've had that experience. I've witnessed women crying on my tables postpartum. And I was like, okay, I want to create something else. What do we want to create? We want to create what we would call like an intact birth experience. And so we got really creative with what do I need to feel the safest and to have the birth experience that I'm desiring, an intact birth experience or a physiologic, biologic birth process. And so for us, it was like, okay, we need space. So we found like we're living in a home. We're like, great, this space is beautiful. All that required for us was like, okay, we're just going to continue our lease, like talk to our landlords, like let us know that this is like all good. We're going to continue on what we're doing. So that was perfect. And then, secondly, my husband, I felt like I needed to like let go a lot of the knowledge that I had learned in birth, right? So I was like, I need to like get out of my educated mind and just like really be in touch and in tune with what my baby's telling me, what my baby's saying, what my body's saying. So that was another process for me. My husband was like, I feel like I need someone to just be the wisdom holder. I just want somebody that I know that has the wisdom in the way that we're wanting to be held in. So say the wisdom around birth. So we there was an auntie here who actually my mentor, I went through a birth keeping course, and my mentor Wapio, she had this incredible history on the East Coast in birth. And someone that had worked with her for a long time was actually on Maui. She ended up being my office assistant's mother. So like it was like totally a God thing. And I'm like, okay, this is incredible. She didn't end up being at our birth, which is a crazy story. And she was the one person we were like, okay, this woman she's 70 something. She's got so much wisdom in birth, and she is unattached to her licensure. She's unattached to all of these like external things. She would really just like look at us and be like, what do you want? Like, let me help you create it. Because I have no attachment. I don't have as much skin in the game. She's on the end of her career, right? So it's like, there's a lot more purity to her practice. And so that was something he needed. There was a financial provision piece that I needed for postpartum. There were a lot of pieces that were like, okay, how can we put this in play now to be able to have the intact birth experience? And I think a lot of us, when the fear comes in, the programming is outsource. Right. So like, let me go talk to a doctor about this. Let me go ask somebody about this. Let me do these things on the outside. Right. The same thing shows up in motherhood, instead of being like, okay, what is the next step? Like asking the internal questions. What would make me feel safe right now? What does my baby need? And knowing that, like something in you knows. If you don't know, something in you knows. And one of my mentors will always be like, if someone says like just answers, I don't know, she's like, but if you did know, what would you do? And so like, if you did know, how would you respond? Right. And so those were the kind of questions that I was asking myself in the pregnancy process. But victim mentality the victim consciousness is in many of the societal like constructs or systems that we have set up. And, fear is one of the main tactics to kind of like keep us in that stronghold, to keep us in that position of powerlessness, I would say. But you can go through, so if you're even considering like the archetypes of victimhood or the Jungian archetypes, you can go through the warrior, the victim, the sovereign, the child, the magician, the saboteur, the lover, the prostitute, right? So you have like these, you can have these archetypes and have the high side and have the lower expression side. And so that was something that I completely went through in birth, just even verbally, like having these ideas pop up of my limitations and my boundaries. And then the lower expression side very much being verbally expressed, and even in like my posturing, and then like having the women and having the support system that's like, no, I'm going to call you higher. I'm going to call you to joy and love and peace and call you to your purpose. Like, what's your purpose here? Because there was a lot of, we don't have to get into all this, but there was a lot of just like intellectual like thoughts, limiting beliefs, a lot of things that had come up in birth that I was verbalizing. And it wasn't about like me in this birth process. It was about like me birthing me. It wasn't about my son coming through. It was about me birthing me as a mother, me as a human, the next version of me as a woman, and the maturation process and that rite of passage. And so, being held with that love and support, and also that those people that knew me in that village feeling of like, you're totally held right now. And I see you and I see this like lower expression of what you're actually trying to like, where you're trying to get to. And let me give you that like keyword. Let me give you that. Let me just hold that space of love, that vibrancy of love. Let me just open your hips in this way, because I know that this is where you want, this is where you want to be. So that was a long-winded answer to where victim consciousness shows up, but I feel like it's got its little things and, you know, all the spokes on the wheel.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I 100% see that. It's even, I feel like in my own process, I had desired to have a home birth and like a natural birth for a very long time. But our culture just like permeates like one perspective on pregnancy and birth, like through it all, right? Mm-hmm. It's like, oh, I'm pregnant, and it's like, oh, so tired. Oh, feel like crap. Like all this like negativity or powerlessness, and it really takes like a conscious choice to be like, wait, I'm going to look at this differently. I'm going to experience this differently. And then also, like you said, bringing the people around you who can call you higher, who can like offer different perspective is so important. And for someone who maybe like for me, I'm the first person in my family to have a home birth, and so it was very much like unfamiliar with my family around me. For someone who maybe it's their first, they're going for it and they're the first one in their family, how would you like encourage them to seek out people to come and support them?
Yeah, that's a really that question's asked a lot in our communities, and I think there's a blanket idea. It's like mothers need others always, no matter what. Mothers need others. And so how are you serving the mothers that are around you and are in your community? I would say that's the first place to start. And especially in maidenhood and prior to children, like the amount of time that we have that we're just like able to make a meal, able to complete a task without small glimpses of something else, like a potty change or a whatever's going on, breastfeeding session. The amount of time that you have, I would say start serving mothers in your community with a meal, with maybe my friends actually, we're working on this idea. It's a seed at the moment, but we're working on this idea of like supporting this group of us in our artistry or in our pursuits. And so being at the beach with my son while I'm over here really close nearby, but with Wi-Fi, doing my things, like getting the tasks done that I'm needing to get done. And then knowing that my son is being held in a space with other children, with other mothers that support me. So I think those small things, those small ideas, in supporting, coming up with creative ways to like really enter into the mothers in your community, enter into their world. I would say that would probably be the biggest piece, and being around. And then from there, you're going to find the folks that like really resonate with you. You're going to find the families in the village that's doing the things the way that you want to do them. And you're probably also going to see a lot of like, I don't want to do that, which brings clarity as well. And so we spent a lot of time, my husband and I, we spent a lot of time with families before we had a child. We spent a lot of time with families that had children. And so we were always loving on kids. We were always holding them, taking them down to the water, walking in the park with, like we were doing the things, with the families near us. And so it felt really natural for us to enter into that because we had already set that stage and had that relationship cultivated. So I think that's an easy way. And another way, if you're interested in birth, I think reach out to the midwives in your community. If that's like something you're interested in, how can you serve them? Ask them how you can serve them. That was the first question I had for the Maui community midwives here was, I came here and I was like, yes, I want to like build professional relationships with you, And at the same time, I want to know what are your needs and how can I serve you and meet you in those in a human level, on a communal level, not just like a professional in a professional sense. So there's a lot of space to be held for mothers. And I think that's the way. And then the other idea that I love to come up, or like I love to bring to people's attention, is that women are in community all over the world, and the internet is the best place to gain inspiration for creating that in your own life. A lot of us utilize Instagram or that social media expression as like the lower side of like the comparison, the, oh, I can't do this, oh, I can't create this, oh, I don't have this here. But the reverse is also true. It's like, here, oh my gosh, ping, this was really expanding for me. I want to create this in my community. Or I really loved how they did this over here. I wonder if anybody near me would want to create this school, this co-op, this et cetera, this whatever, enter whatever there. So you can also utilize, social media as a really expansive tool. And I think, just giving yourself permission to do it and allowing social media to be your invitation, I think, is a really cool way to switch that for people.
Totally. It's like invitation and inspiration, and then creating with your own hands.
Exactly.
It's so good.
Yeah.
Well, I would love to hear, like, how do you see the effects? So we talked about a little bit of like how the victim mentality shows up. How do you see when somebody steps into ownership and like powerfulness? How do you see that present in their pregnancy process and birth?
I like this question. I think the first place my mind goes to is setting yourself up in a mindset way, like from the very beginning, from conception. And not that you have to have like a conscious conception to do this, but just really diving into your belief systems and what you think about pregnancy. What do you think about birth? How did your parents birth? How was your grandmother birth? Like all of those ideas and those threads can be pulled through. One of the things that I consciously like wove into, I feel like my cellular matrix prior to pregnancy, was that birth and pregnancy is healing. Like there's an inherent healing process that happens when your body is growing new life. And I think that the collective idea about pregnancy right now is that it's draining. Pregnancy is a marathon. It is an electron stealer. It is a mineral depleter. Like all of those ideas, I actually had woven into me that like, this is going to be life-giving and I'm creating life. There's abundance, there's expansion, there are all like insert whatever big positive word that you want to insert there. There is room for more life because life begets life, right? Like the universe is always expanding, and I'm in this moment in time, I'm like creating new cells, new blood, new bones. Like there's an insane amount of proliferation and that fertile feeling that happens during pregnancy. And so I harnessed that idea in pregnancy. And it was a gift it is a gift that I give a lot of my clients, is that, pregnancy doesn't have to be what, Auntie so-and-so told you it is, or what the gal in the checkout line told you about her birth while you're pregnant. It doesn't have to be that. You can decide. You get to decide what it is. And I think that's part of, my mission, and my husband and I's mission together is just like really helping people navigate new paradigms in a heart-centered way. And I think to get to the root of our belief systems, we really do have to like work through some of these emotional patterns and bring up some of the awareness around what we think about everything and really defining it for ourselves. And so that's how you move towards creation. And that's how you move towards, this consciousness, this like warrior is not the word, but just the opposite of what the victim mentality would be to like be fully in your power, fully in your knowing, your KNOW, right? Your NO, both being fully in that to be able to see the direction that you're going. Did you have, what was your experience like in pregnancy with the victim consciousness. Did you have anything that was relevant to your process?
Yeah. Well, when I was pregnant, so one of my best friend who is also a midwife assistant, I had gotten to she had two babies by the time I was pregnant, and I was like so fortunate enough to get to attend her first birth, and it was so beautiful because up until that point, I had never really seen like a natural birth, even though I knew I wanted one. I didn't watch videos or anything like that. And, media portrays birth in such a like opposite spectrum of what it is. And so getting to see her and then just to walk alongside her in that process, I feel like it really laid a foundation for my own. And so when I became pregnant, it was actually kind of a little bit of a tumultuous time. My husband lost his job like 2 months after we found out we were pregnant, and I feel like that was the main source of probably where there was room for this victim's mentality of like he remained searching for a job without a job for like 7 months. It was the month before we gave birth where he found out like he received a job and was going to be able to start. But that was such a point of tension just in myself of like, of like, oh, like, yeah, I'm expanding, like creating this life. There's this little life like inside of me about to join us. But on the outside, there's like this shaking or this instability. And so I remember my husband and I, we would just like spend time just talking and praying and just being really intentional about where our mind was and not suppressing any anxiety because wanting to be vulnerable and work through that. But ultimately, like, okay, how do we remain in a place of hope? How do we remain like at the end of the day, like he's coming, like our baby is coming, like there's a day he's going to join us, whatever our life looks like on the outside. And like, it's going to be good. And
Totally.
like he's with us. And so, but I would say a big piece of that too is having people around me that I could talk to and they could just spend time speaking life. I do remember though this one specific instance where so we had found out we were pregnant on Thanksgiving of 2020, I guess 2022, and we were traveling to my husband's family for Christmas, and we were like, we're gonna tell them when we're with them in person. And so we were in the airport flying there, and we were just chatting with like the TSA lady, and we like told her we were pregnant and we were like so excited we're gonna share it with my husband's family, and she just like straight out the gate was like, oh, like I wouldn't do that, like I would wait. I miscarried like my baby within the first like month or two, which was like the window we were in.
That's so hard to hear as a first time.
It was, oh my gosh. I was like, in the moment, I was like, wait, what did she just say to me? And we got through TSA, and my husband and I looked at each other, and it was this moment of like, where there was like, oh my gosh, like, like this moment of fear. And then it was like, wait a second, like, no, like, I don't have to wear that. Like he's safe. And so just this moment of like, it was so interesting. And then little things like that happen all along the way.
But that also brings up such a good point, and that another thing that my husband and I really worked through is that like death is also on the table. The moment that birth is here, so it like the polarity has to be present. So we worked through a lot of that, especially having a birth that was unassisted, medically unassisted. We worked through like, what do we feel like our death is going to look like? Because that's a question too, it's like as a mother, you're going through this portal of unknown, and that is the scariest moment but also the most exhilarating. And that's where most transformation is going to happen, is into stepping into this really unknown space. And how do you feel about death? Do you want your death to be medically assisted? Like, those were the kind of questions that like my husband and I came up with. And if we were to miscarry, is there going to be some type of like prayer, ritual, burial? Like, what would that look like? Are we going to do that at home? Like, those are the kind of questions and real time moments that they elicit some type of maturity, I think, in the mother and also in the dynamic between the husband and wife. And I think that's like a really beautiful piece to insert there, and questions, real questions to insert for first-time mothers and first-time fathers. It's like, just know that both are on the table. They're both on the table. And that's why life is like so precious. And these moments they're so fleeting. And as you know this, but our sons are similar age. And so as they change in the first year, they become this like little peanut into this like walking, talking, moving, grooving, having their own experience with the world. And that happened within 12 months. Like, that is such a wild idea. So anything is possible in birth. And I always I love to like remind clients in my office. And also we were constantly talking about that in our preparation.
Yeah, I feel like that's so beautiful because, like, honestly, I feel like, death is something that's really not, we don't spend a whole lot of time like thinking about it. Or if we do, it's just like, yeah, it's like this fleeting, unintentional thing. And I love hearing that piece, because it is, if I, have had friends who have experienced miscarriages or stillbirth, and what does it look like to honor and be present and that period. And so I love that piece you just brought of like even getting to talking about it before it even happens, or if it never happens, or but just like coming to this place of knowing or honor within yourself.
And
it's really beautiful.
It really comes down to your foundational beliefs about life, right? Like, any length of life to me is honorable. And we have this intelligence within us and around us, right? A lot of people call it spirit, Holy Spirit, the living, breathing piece of us, what keeps us alive. And that's connected in through everything. Everything that's created has that breath of inspiration there. And yeah, so the honoring of life would have looked just the same as the honoring of life that was 2 months long versus however long my son's gonna be on earth. So I feel like that's a really crucial piece too. It's vital for to feel safe, to feel like you have some type of parameters set in place. That's another interesting dynamic, is like the husband's, the father's role in birth creates so much sense of safety for the mother. And really working out the dynamics there was a huge part of our process. And like getting clear on what my expectation was of him, or whoever your birthing partner is. What is my expectation of you? What are your roles? What would I like to see you? How would I like to see you support me? That gives them so much peace and like calms down their anxiety levels, calms down their fear. And like, if you witness, I always go back to nature too. It's like, that is one of the best oxytocin, dopamine, serotonin elicitors, is just being outside, witnessing birds in the trees, witnessing the wind blow through the forest that we have here, watching the sun like peek through the valley and create shadows on our house and on our skin. Those kind of moments, that's what really centers us here. And I think that's available anywhere in any climate, is really getting back in tune with nature and watching how animals, like how animals procreate, how animals birth. The moment I actually rewatched my birth, the very first thought I had was like, whoa, I've seen this before. The way that my son came out and like fell on the bed. I have seen that before. I grew up on a farm, and not to compare myself to cattle or to pigs or anything else. But at the same time, there was something really primal and beautiful about the natural process of just like being in a position, letting my son come through, sitting back, holding him. Like I've seen that, and that has been in my consciousness in other moments of my life. And I think back to childhood, like watching cattle have their babies, and the way that they would like plop on the ground, and then they would start to like lick them and hold them and do the things and cuddle around them. So yeah, really looking to like all of God's creation to be like, how is it for us? How are we going to orient ourselves around this process? And a lot of that will just quiet the fear.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Wow. I grew up not on a farm, but we had horses, and totally I had grew up getting to see the process of like breeding horses, and got to see like a few births. And I love that you brought that up, because they just like give birth and they are there on the floor, and
It's
it's like such a
unassisted.
yeah, unassisted. It's such a like polar opposite to what maybe one would experience like in a hospital. Like I feel like I saw a video recently where, the baby's instantly swooped up, and like, the towels or blankets and like all of that sort of stuff. And I just remember in my own like birth of my son, like we had a water birth, and he when he came out, like my hands were the first hands that were able to hold him and like bring him up onto my chest. And it's like in the moment you're in it and experiencing it, and afterwards I'm like, man, I'm so grateful. Like it happened so naturally, and um like I couldn't imagine experiencing it in that other way of like all these other things being brought in before maybe he's even held on my arms. And relating it back to nature too, like the babies coming out, and like then the moms licking them, and when they take their first steps or whatnot. It's so it's powerful, I think. Yeah, like you're saying, getting back into nature and seeing the design, and like it's powerful in a sense of like we're designed that way as well. Like
Yeah.
it's so simple.
If you even look at like old text, old midwife text, or any ancient cultures, most of them preserved some type of imagery around birthing mothers. And so some women were surrounded in community. Other women went and like created their hay mat and laid on that, had their baby, came back to the village. Other women were holding fabric over a branch and really just like hanging and birthing and squatting and doing these really primal movements. Other women were sitting in gold chairs and birthing on a seat around people. And so I drew a lot of inspiration at the beginning of my pregnancy for that too, imagining and envisioning how my son wanted to come through. I think there's a lot of power in your intention with what you fill your mind with, right? The more that there's also a lot of competition culture right now on Instagram with like, my birth looked like this, or I wanted the twinkle lights, or I wanted XYZ, and really like not receiving whatever kind of imagery that you wanted in birth. I think about that all the time. It's like I don't want birth to be comparative, but that's kind of where it's gone in the home birth world anyway, via social media. But like I was saying earlier, it's like using those as inspirational pieces, using those as invitations to create what you want and what your knowing knows that it needs, versus derivative pieces of content or creating an experience that someone else had and you're just ordering that up. I think there's a lot of power in being in nature, knowing what you need, looking to the past to be like, cool, where can I find this within myself? Where did my ancestors have these pieces? What did they bring in? Can I call in some of that? What resonates with my system? What resonates with our family unit? And then creating from there.
Yeah. So good. So I'm curious that what would you say is the main contributor to outsourcing responsibility?
I think this goes back to the fear piece and
Mhm.
really just stepping into the unknown. Um, a lot of what is natural or what our ancestors have done has been lost
Mhm.
in the generations that we're living in now. And
Mhm.
I think that's where a lot of the separation comes from, is like not seeing it not being in your visual field, it not being in your even your cellular field, right? Like your genetic, um, your most recent genetic makeup. And we think about the way that children are being conceived now through IVF and through different types of technology. We're losing the ability to conceive. We're losing the ability to birth because the C-section rates are like, we know that they're higher than they ever have been before.
Mhm.
And so we lose all these little pieces. And then you go into the postpartum period and you're losing the ability to breastfeed. Everyone is orally restricted. Everyone's getting a laser procedure to alter the tissue within their mouth so that they're quote unquote able to breastfeed. And I think, you know, a lot of what is just natural and what is normal, quote unquote normal, what is the biological rhythm of humanity and womanhood into motherhood into this infant direction and the trajectory in which we're growing and going as humans. A lot of the pieces that make us human have been lost. And so I would say
Mhm.
that would be, recovering some of the like humanness pieces. And that's why I always look back to nature and the creation and the sunlight and the salt, the minerals, the electromagnetic pieces of the earth. Like all of those help us remember. We're remembering, we're reorganizing our body and our
Mm.
field, our energetic field and our insides, our genetic makeup, to know that information, to know that wisdom and become and like, yeah, be close to it again. And so I think a
Mhm.
lot of it's just, where we're headed. And we're at a really interesting point where the all of the technology in the medical system, in health, in birth, in pregnancy, and in postpartum with infants, a lot of that technology is not making people have a better quality of life at the moment. There may be a
Mhm.
time where like that transition happens and where we outsource more of that to technology. I'm not sure exactly like where we're headed, but right now that we haven't crossed that line to where that technology is like bettering the human body for this time and place and
Mhm.
this place in the world that we are. Um, what is allowing people to do those biological functions is getting back into nature and getting back into the circadian rhythm, the hormonal rhythm, the natural rhythm of our bodies. And so I think that's just where you start. And that brings you back more into this like trust, love, intuition, this knowingness, this ability to be in the unknown and be like, I know that I'm supposed to be here in this moment because
Mhm.
my body is telling I'm getting the signals. I'm getting the proper signaling. You can utilize your environment to know where you are in time and space and know if you're going in the right direction. It's like praying
Mhm.
about it, getting the word, moving forward, and then allowing your environment and your people around your village to be that reflection of, am I going the right way or not? So it comes back to fear and like choosing to move towards love versus avoiding, making decisions in
Mhm.
avoidance of being scared. So I
Mhm.
don't know if that answered your
Yeah.
question.
Oh, I feel like it totally did. It totally did. And it makes me think like it's such a process. And honestly, just like a journey. I feel like in my own life, I growing up, in a pretty conventional way, like going to the pediatrician and just really like growing up and it was like, oh, these people tell me about my health.
Totally.
They tell me how I am or if I'm, feeling bad a certain way, like I'm going to go and they're going to tell me what I need to do to fix it or yeah, like that. And but in my own journey, I feel like like the intuition as I got older, and even being outside of like my parents' responsibility. Okay, now I'm responsible for like scheduling doctor's appointments, doing these things, getting vaccines, like all of that sort of stuff.
Okay.
And intuitively, as I got older, I just was like, I don't want to get this or that, and at the time, not really having like context for it, but just, and then as growing older and then wanting to start a family, and then now I'm actually going to deep dive into these topics, and then be like, wow, this is informing this new information I'm getting is informing this intuition that I've been acting on. But it like continuously kind of being a journey that unfolds.
It's such a
And
cool moment when the information that you're receiving matches with
mhm,
what you've been told inside or what you've been asking on
mhm,
the inside. I feel like that is
yeah,
like one of God's gifts. It's like a little trail, a little cookie crumb trail that you're like, God's like,
mhm,
yes, keep going, you got this. Like everything,
yeah,
all the inner information, all the intuition that you're downloading, you're on the right track.
it's so good.
So good.
So good. You kind of touched on this a little bit, but I would love to hear if you have any more thoughts or what you would share to somebody who's wanting to regain trust in their intuition, in the innate ability to birth. Just what would be some like steps that you would take? You've mentioned getting out in nature, but I'm just curious if there's any other like practicals or other thoughts you have around that.
Yeah, I think this is a really great question, and it's not going to be the same for everybody. What
Mm-hmm.
was really helpful for me, and you can utilize this and like let it be a tool for you and let it be supportive for you if it calls to you, is quieting the information seeking. So all of the information coming in, just like really turning the volume down on that. And whether that looks like unfollowing things on social media or taking yourself off of social media for a moment in time, preventing yourself from like consuming through reading, etc. um,
Mm-hmm.
I would say that would be the first piece, so that you're able to listen on the inside, you're able to connect with your baby and your inner knowing and really hear what because your baby's orchestrating this with you, your birth. It's like, it's their birth. It's a birth of you, and it's a birth of a child, and an entire life, an entire lifetime. And what a responsibility that is, and what an honor that is. And I think we forget about the magnitude of just carrying life and the miracle that it is. So turning down the volume, really tuning into your body. And then I think orienting your days to being outside is one of the best things that you're going to do for your baby, for your body's ability to birth and to remember how to birth. And I always think about it too, just like from a chemical, electrical, mitochondrial level. All the mitochondrial DNA is passed down through the mother line. And so your ability to heal from ailments, to heal tissue, to heal diseases, etc., is directly correlative to the amount of energy in your system. And that all comes down to the health of the mitochondria. And so really orienting yourself to where you are in time and space by being outside and eating foods that are seasonal and that have the same light signature of the place that you're in, and utilizing the sunlight, utilizing the earth's core, utilizing the salt water, the river nearby to really cleanse you and fuel you in a way that will prepare you for being the clearest that you need to be to step into the portal to bring life through.
Mm-hmm. 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 Oh, it's so good. It's so good.
Yeah.
I love that
It's
so
it's
much.
funny because it's simple.
Yeah.
A lot of us, and I'm not exempt from this. I think it shows up in other categories of my life. I want someone to tell me the easy way. Give me this little silver bullet that's going to like cure all. And
Mm-hmm.
you're like, okay, well, that's not actually the process, and that won't actually satisfy what you're seeking. What will satisfy is a transformation, and transformation oftentimes takes a little bit of work, and you can define what work is to you, but it takes a little bit of effort. And oftentimes transformation, you go through a process to receive whatever is on the other side, to be transformed, to be anew. There's a process that's required. And so in chiropractic terms, there's like there's a chiropractic principles, and one of them is all processes take time. And so I come back to that a lot. And we get to define how long, how little amount of time that we're going to give something, and what time is, because a lot of thoughts is like, it is just the now. All the moments are in one moment. And so things, and from a quantum lens, can get a little distorted there. And that also brings so much room and so much space for miracles to be in your field, and know that like, you're actually not controlling this, you're co-creating. And the Holy Spirit, God, is really like this orchestrating piece in and around us. And how can I jump on the same wave as that? How can I be in tune with that? That would be my biggest tip for preparing.
I love that. I love that so much. It sounds like, getting time, making time to honestly, quiet what's around you and tune in to what's inside by experiencing the beauty of what's outside.
Exactly.
And the way that it's designed and working, and moving from that place.
Yeah, letting it be a reflection. Yeah, I think too, I would think of like the Veda Austin water studies, and how even just the sounds that you experience in your environment, they structure, and we know how much our bodies are made up of X% of water. Like a lot of our human meat suit is a liquid structure, and the sounds and the thoughts that you have, all of those things are orienting our cellular and liquid matrix into different patterns and in different harmonies. And if we're wanting all of these things to like be in tune and work together, we have to orient ourselves to things that are beautiful and things that are symmetrical and things that are in harmony. And nature is just like the easiest, most accessible piece to be a mirror for. And so you want your baby to be growing in this like, in chiropractic too, the woman who started the Webster technique, Jeannie Ohm, she would always say, your baby is marinating in whatever hormonal soup that you're experiencing in your body. Your baby's marinating in that hormonal soup. And so like all through pregnancy, I was like, I want to have like serotonin, dopamine hormonal soup. Like this baby's going to get the best soup ever. And I just think about that as like, I want to mirror whatever structure, like in nature, and this beauty and this, I want to have reverence for that, because that's what I want to be happening on the inside. And we know the resonance that being in nature will match you up with that frequency. And so, not to keep going down rabbit holes, but
it's so great.
Yeah.
It's so great. Yeah. Well, we are coming up on an hour. I feel like this has gone by so fast. But I just want to thank you so much for just sharing on this topic and sharing from your own life, your own story, and what you've seen. This is just a powerful, powerful place to just sit in. And I hope just our listeners, I hope that you just receive a beautiful invitation. And
I love this. Thank you for putting out this offering. So good.
I'm so excited. I just want to thank you for listening to today's episode. Don't forget, you can follow us on Instagram. We're so excited to be having these conversations, and would love to hear your thoughts and how your takeaways from today's episode. So Thanks.
Thanks, Juliet.